Hello, and you join us as England are experiencing the ecstasy of victory in this series, and for the West Indies, the 32-year wait for a series victory in England continues. Um, and that means that we have reached the end of both the third test between England and the West Indies, but also the series as a whole. And what a series it has been. So to kick us off on this episode, where we will be looking both at the third test, but also at the series as a whole, Jacob will be giving us our overview of day 5.
Yes. So the West Indies began with Shea Hope and Craig Brathwaite at the crease, having on the evening of day 3 lost John Campbell and night watchman Kemar Roach. So they began day 5 after a day 4 washout with Brathwaite and Hope at the crease. And unfortunately, really in the story of the day, this partnership didn't last very long. Wickets fell for England at fairly regular intervals. Craig Brathwaite was the first man to go on day 5 with a ball keeping deceptively low and hitting him on the pads, trapping him LBW and giving Stuart Broad his 500th test wicket, becoming, we believe to our knowledge, only the second man behind the great Shane Warne to take both 500 test wickets and make 3,000 test runs. So really a fantastic achievement for Stuart Broad. And things really didn't get better for the West Indies from then on, to be honest. Chris Woakes bowled excellently to take a fifer as he got rid of Shea Hope just 5 overs after Brathwaite. Then just 3 overs later, Brooks fell to Woakes being caught behind. Then just 6 overs after that, Roston Chase was run out brilliantly by Dom Best, throwing off balance to the other end where he was running away from. That was a great piece of fielding by him. Then Jason Holder went. He was bowled LBW by Woakes. Then Dowrich was also bowled LBW by Woakes. And then Cornwall was also bowled LBW by Woakes. And then finally, with his first ball of his second spell in the 37th over, Stuart Broad came back, took his 501st wicket, took 10 wickets for the match, and had Blackwood caught behind by Butler off a short ball. And yeah, that was the end of the day. England victorious in this series, as Pav says, the wait goes on. Top scorer for the West Indies was Shea Hope with 31. Perhaps more significantly, the top the West Indian batsman with the most time spent in the middle, which is really what they needed. They needed to bat out the day. That was Jermaine Blackwood with 78 minutes. Only he, Shea Hope with 71 minutes, and Brathwaite with 61 minutes managed to last over an hour at the crease. So it really wasn't a great batting performance from West Indies. Bowling performance, very good for the most part from England. Spinner Best was not used. So it was the 4-seam, and obviously Stokes was injured. He had a quad injury, couldn't bowl. So it was 4-seamers, Anderson, Broad, Woakes and Archer. Woakes and Broad were the pick of the bowlers, taking all nine wickets that fell to bowlers, with one being a run out, the 10th being a run out. They took all 9 between them. Anderson bowled very economically with an economy rate of 2 for 25. And Archer also bowled quite economically with an economy rate of 2.4, although he didn't look on his best. His pace was very much down and he didn't take wickets, which was kind of what he was expected to do. But when Broad and Woakes were cleaning up like that, not so much a problem. And he doesn't seem to like Old Trafford very much, Jofra Archer. He doesn't take many wickets there. So, yes, a really good day for England. Really excellent day for Stuart Broad, taking his 500th test wicket. Massive congratulations to him. To quote David Lloyd, who some of you may know as Bumble, it's an elite club, and he said Anderson at the time, but Broad's just joined it. Yeah, really fantastic. Interestingly, Craig Brathwaite was the man who was bowled by James Anderson for his 500th wicket, so he now has the dubious honour of being the 500th wicket of both Anderson and Broad. But yeah, really fantastic day for England.
Yeah, big performance from England, not just over the course of the day, but the course of that match and also the second match as well. So obviously all of the headlines are on Stuart Broad, rightly so actually. He took his 500th Test wicket early in the day, a massive milestone from him. But in the spotlight being on Stuart Broad, we seem to have overlooked another bowler who was influential in England's second innings, especially, which is Chris Woakes, who took a fifer in that innings and really shored up and was the foundation of that bowling attack on the last day to get the West Indies out cheaply and win the match. So how good is Chris Woakes in English conditions? And is he overlooked and underrated in English cricket?
Well, the simple answer to that is he's fantastic, and he's got the numbers to back it up. I don't think he is overlooked in that sense, because it's kind of widely known that he's an English conditions specialist. He's very good here. Interestingly, he actually, if you just take English conditions, he has a better average than Broad and Anderson. He takes wickets for fewer runs. He does really well in English conditions. The problem is, I think he averages something like 21 in English conditions. But as soon as you go overseas, anywhere overseas, his overseas average is 44, which is a pretty poor bowling average. It's really quite high. So that's always been his problem. And I don't think he's overlooked or underrated in the sense that we all know he's a good bowler, but he struggles away from home. And that's always kind of been the story of the England team. They're very good in English conditions, and then because English conditions are so different to conditions everywhere else, they kind of struggle overseas, and winning overseas tours is the big thing. So I think Woakes, this is really probably the best time in his career for him, in that he's on great form, but also he can kind of be protected a little bit in the sense that England now have the strength in depth in their bowling lineup that when we go abroad, Woakes doesn't need to be used as much. And so he can kind of be protected, be given English conditions to work with and selected in England. Sam Curran's a bit similar, although he does average, I think, a bit better overseas. But Sam Curran's another player like that who really excels at home. And although he played very well in South Africa. But yeah, you can kind of protect these guys and select them for the games in England predominantly. And then you've got Archer, Wood, Broad, Anderson, who all bowl well overseas. Bess, you've got the young spinners coming through who we think will bowl well overseas. You've got people like Ollie Stone, who's got that pace. You know, these are all young guys, but at some point, this is really good for Chris Woakes in that he can be protected a little more and not have his average hurt by conditions which don't favour him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree that he's very good in English conditions. So the stat that came out of that fifer was, I think that's out of his fifers in England, that was the only one that hasn't been taken at Lords. So it shows just how good he is, especially at Lords. So the common sort of conception about Chris Woakes is that he's very good at Lords, and when he bowls up the slope at Lords, he'll be brilliant. But anywhere else, sort of, he struggles. But I think that's partly because of how he bowls, which is that he's not, he doesn't have express pace, but he uses the seam a lot, and the seam bowling is very suited to English conditions. And you mentioned Sam Curran as well. It's the same with him, I suppose, that they're both seam bowlers. So I suppose it's the way that they bowl and the way that they get their deliveries to move favours England and nowhere else. But I do think that I suppose it's not that he's underrated. It's just that obviously you're not going to get the headlines on the day when Stuart Broad, has such a magnificent achievement. And so obviously to be honest, Chris Woakes is very happy to be in the background. He said time and time again that he prefers to be in the background and getting on with it. And that's when he falls best. It's not when he's just in the limelight.
Yeah, and he got his 100th Test wicket in this series, didn't he? I think.
Yeah.
So he's having some good times, and I don't think, unfortunately for him, I don't think he's ever going to be considered like a great of English cricket.
Yeah, no,
but he will be remembered fondly as a very good bowler, particularly in England.
Yeah, he'll be remembered as a very reliable player for England, especially when we're at home. But I think he can't be considered a great, or he won't be because of the overseas performance. There aren't any really abiding memories overseas of him like we have with especially with Jimmy and also Stuart Broad.
Yeah.
But yes,
Chris Woakes.
Chris Woakes, yes, that is Chris Woakes covered.
Congratulations to him. He took a very, very good fiver. Looked really kind of skilled with the ball and he outplayed the West Indian attack.
Definitely, I think he has. He also has my vote for wicket of the series.
The Blackwood wicket.
In their first innings, it went straight onto middle stump. Brilliant ball that. But yes,
I will challenge you with that. Actually, I think wicket of the series was Stuart Broad's wicket of John Campbell on the evening of day 3 of the third test, when he basically David Warnered him. He drifted it in, nipped it away, and it works every time for Stuart Broad against the left-hander. So it's a bit of a magic ball, and it looked beautiful. I'll challenge you on that one.
There you go. We got 2 good deliveries there. And if you guys, if our listeners want to tune in with what they thought was a wicket of the series, they're more than welcome.
Not even wicket of the series. What's the best wicket you've seen?
Yeah.
What's the one which really made you just sit back and go, "Oh, that was good. Oh, I enjoyed that."
That was spicy, as Jimmy would say.
Tweet us #TOOpod, social media, email, everything. Do it.
Just do it, because we've not had much love so far from
no.
We've not had much many comments come in, so
none of the professional players have replied to us tagging them. I don't know why.
It's
almost like they think that going on a podcast which has a listenership of about 10 is a waste of their time.
Oh dear me. Anyways, moving on. One thing that we have to do is recognise that even though the result of this series wasn't what the West Indies wanted, especially after the promising start they made in the first test, it was a huge thing for them to make a try here, and it was really important for English to make a try here. And there was no obligation for them to do that. They're coming from a place where the infection rate there is quite low, and they were riding into the belly of the beast basically, but they still did it, and they still decided to come over here. And only 3 players from that team, because they were all given choice of whether they watched only 3 players said, "No, we prefer not to," and they gave it their all when they came here. So I think a special thanks needs to go out to them, because it wasn't the result they hoped for, but it was a huge thing. And in cricket generally owes them a debt of gratitude, because they got things moving again. And I mean, had they said no, this series wouldn't have happened, no matter what the ECB did. So it really is up to the West Indies, and it really is down to them that this happened.
And big props to Jason Holder and the West Indies team for coming over when they didn't have to, and in these tough conditions where they hadn't had a lot of practice and stuff, and really playing fantastically and putting up a good fight and making it competitive right to the last day. And every match went to the fifth day. Every match could still have been won on the fifth day or drawn at least. The Wisden Trophy on the last day of the entire series was still in play.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, it was a fantastic series. We've talked about this before, but in terms of, I think it's interesting that you use the phrase cricket owes them a debt. I think, as we discussed before, obviously it's a very selfless and brave thing that they've done in coming over here. But I won't say it's entirely selfless in that I think the West Indies Cricket Board and now the Pakistani Cricket Board have very gently said to the ECB, yeah, maybe cricket and specifically you do owe us a bit of a debt. So the West Indies obviously saying maybe the next time the finances are divided, maybe we get a bit of a bigger share. And Pakistan, either that or, maybe we toured you when it was dangerous. Maybe you could reevaluate how dangerous touring Pakistan is, and you could come over, because obviously, was it 2010 that terrorist attack on the Sri Lankan team in Pakistan? There was until either 2018 or 19 no international cricket played in Pakistan. So the Pakistan Test team had never played at home, and then I think Sri Lanka were the first to come back.
Yeah.
And then the MCC and did maybe Bangladesh go there as well?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure.
But the PCB over there is very keen on one of the big three.
Yeah. England,
Australia, India, coming over and touring and showing everyone that it's safe and that big nations can go there. So I think that's part of it. I'm not going to say it's, I don't think it's the entire motivation. I think that it was just for the good of the game, and I really admire that. But I think there's definitely some of that in. Obviously, the way it works with Pakistan now is I think England will probably tour there in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Australia will probably tour there maybe the next year, and then India will tour there in about 6 or 7 years.
I mean, and obviously India, Pakistan, there's
that's
something else there as well. Yeah,
that's a special case. So, but
let's see what happens there.
It will be a big coup for Pakistan if they got a big three member to tour there, and then it would be basically the diplomatic relations moment of the decade if they got India to tour there. So
that would be I mean, it would be
with Imran Khan as Prime Minister, you'd think that cricket is pretty high up on the diplomatic list.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's something for another episode, is how sport can be used for diplomacy and stuff. And we can talk about it separately. But it would be a good way of maybe making some peace there. But what do we know?
We know nothing. We are really, you don't listen to this to be informed, because God knows we're not.
But no, as you said, I really do hope that there is, that the West Indies do call in these favours, and say, well, listen, we did you a favour here, and now it's time for you to give us something back, because God knows the finance of the game, the way that the game, the way that the rewards from the game financially are divided up is not fair at all at the moment, especially on the smaller nations.
And the West Indies deserve it.
Oh yeah,
they so deserve it. They are, they're not a formally great Test playing nation. They are a great Test playing nation. The team at the moment is in a bit of a dip, but it's coming back. But right up until 30 years ago, which ultimately in the history of cricket is not that long.
Yeah, they
were the best team in the world, and they took a dip. Michael Holding, of course, would blame T20 cricket, and I'd be inclined to agree. But it's the West Indies need it and deserve it, and I really hope they can build up a fantastic large audience for Test cricket and a great team again. It would be lovely to see the West Indies, because they play cricket in such a good, nice, exciting way.
Oh, definitely.
It would be great to see them get, world class again, and that would be nice to see.
Yeah, and I do think if they became world class again, which they have all the potential of doing, it would help to. I mean, it work in a way to rebalance things globally, because suddenly it would be just like it was 30 years ago, where the members of the big three and other teams across the world would be actively, approaching the West Indies to come and tour because of how good they are and how much of a draw they are. But they have all the potential of getting back to that level. It just needs the right management, which they seem they've got now. So it should be good.
Yeah. Especially the relationship between England and the West Indies, because obviously we have such a kind of historically well rooted and pretty sizable West Indian community here, who do turn out to the game. They're probably second only to the kind of South Asian communities here. They do turn out to the games here, and they've people in the West Indies have turned out less and less to Test cricket over the years, but they used to pack out grounds. So hopefully we can get there again.
I mean, yeah, and that's just, I suppose that's just England as a whole, is that because there's been so much, it's so multicultural now, that there is almost, there's the concept of home advantage doesn't exist in England, because every team has a home advantage. So it was one of the things I remember back before the World Cup last year, and there was I think it was an ad that was made by one of the sponsors or something, where there was different people from. And they were like, what home advantage are you talking about? Because every single team has a massive following here. But it's great to see. It's something that makes a game really special in England.
Yeah. Well, we've always said that where you live is basically like New Delhi, but with more Indian people. So, it's one of those things where, especially obviously the South Asian communities, but also West Indian communities, and not a massive Australian community here, but there are quite a few.
A sizable one.
And they all turn out for the cricket and love it, and it was great to see. And especially smaller nations as well. We'll come on to Ireland with the ODI series in a minute, but when we play the Test against Ireland, when we play against them, there's a big Irish community here, and while cricket isn't the biggest sport in Ireland, you get a lot of Irish people in, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah, that's it, exactly that. Yes. So one last thing on this, on the fact that the West Indies came over here when they didn't need to, is, do you think the series would have gone differently had it been played in normal times, and had it been played when the players could go out, when they'd be able to get rest between games and stuff? Do you think that things would have gone differently for the West Indies?
I don't know if they would have won. I think it would have helped them a lot if their bowlers could have got a few more days rest in between games. Also, obviously, if I think it was all batsmen that were left at home because of they opted out. I think Shimron Hetmeyer was one of those, and fair play to him. No slight on him. Absolutely, it's your right. You're coming from a country where there is no coronavirus, and you don't want to be getting infected. You don't want to be the guy who takes it home. I think with nations. So
with Shimron as well, I think one of the big things was that he had, I think his son or something like that has a medical condition or something. So so it was a big sort of personal thing for him as well.
So that's absolutely fair enough. But if guys like that had been there, it might have shored up the West Indian batting lineup a bit. So it might have made it a more competitive series, even though it was highly competitive. But there were times where you kind of looked at the West Indies, especially in the last Test as it closed, and you were like, they're not in it anymore.
Yeah.
And even though, as we said, technically the Wisden Trophy was still up for grabs, you kind of had to think that it would be the rain that saved them, and that the batting lineup wasn't going to last. So, I think it could have gone a bit differently, but I don't know if it would have changed the result ultimately. But it'll be interesting to see now going into a Pakistan series with only a week's rest. Pakistan fresh here. Chris Silverwood's little gimmick of getting hammered in the first test and then somehow coming back as a world-class team in the second and third.
Yeah.
He seems to do that.
Maybe that's just the trait that we'll look back on for this particular.
Yeah, this might be the thing that they do. Because we did it the last two tours. We've done that. We got hammered in the first test in South Africa by. Did they win by an innings and 100 runs or something?
It was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a huge victory.
They completely destroyed us, and then the next test we went out and made 400 when it looked like, a week before it looked like we could never have done that. So
it's very England have these, I don't know, every England team has one weakness, or something that you think, well, you can't always trust this team, even if it looks like the easiest chase ever. You can't trust them to do it, because there will be something that slips up.
It's very exciting being an England fan, because you kind of look at it and you're like, we're chasing 127.
I don't think,
and we should get it, but there's every chance we collapse and get all out for 43. That could happen. So it's always a bit nerve-wracking, but
they don't make it easy. They really don't.
Also, it'll be interesting to see how that affects England going into the Pakistan series, and also Pakistan, dare I say it, Test cricket-wise, a bit of a step up from the West Indies. The West Indies are a good team, but Pakistan, while not the best team in the world, obviously, they are a very good team.
Especially recently, they've had some really really good young players coming through. Their openers are sorted out with Imam and the others.
And they've got Naseem is the 16-year-old, 17-year-old bowler who can throw it faster than a Ferrari. He's mad. So they're no offense to the West Indies, but I think Pakistan are a bit of a better Test cricket team.
Yeah, I think the reason that they're better is that they're just in they're in a more advanced stage of their development than the West Indies. And that's really it.
But they ran Australia pretty close last time they played them. I think they got destroyed in Australia, but when they played them in Dubai, they ran them pretty close.
I think they did beat Australia in that series.
Everyone gets destroyed in Australia.
Yeah,
I mean that's what we're going to do in a year. So we'll see. But Pakistan have been playing really well, and I think it's an exciting series to look forward to.
And we'll look forward to that in a little while.
Do you want to do talking a bit of shop here, viewers? Do you want to do a separate episode on that, or?
I think okay. Let's do that as
we'll do a separate episode looking forward to the Pakistan series.
We have something else to look forward to.
Well, hey, more of this.
Okay. I was going to say, so we've covered this series now. It's that first series of the summer, sort of that first hurdle in terms of how bicycle cricket is going to look has been passed, and with minimal difficulty. There was that one incident with Jofra, but that was it. Everything else has worked really smoothly and it's gone really well, and it's really been a credit to the ECB. What you look at, each test series has a sort of theme that runs through it, and there's always something that links the tests together. There's always some sort of narrative. So you think about the old West Indies tours. There was the Blackwash tour in the 80s, where the theme was all Tony Greig's comments that he'd made before the series, and how the West Indies reacted to that and how the players reacted, and also then the controversy about fast pitch bowling and everything, and short pitch bowling. What do you think are the themes of this particular series? What do you think has run through this one?
I think the big themes of it were mainly on the West Indies side. It was always, could their bowling attack make up for the weaknesses in their batting attack, or kind of put their batting lineup in a position to succeed? And then as the series went on, it was, does the West Indies bowl, because we saw in the first test they could the fragile bowling attack, which could, a batting attack rather, which can't really make more than 350. They only made 318 or something, and they won the test really well, because the bowling attack put them in that position. And then as the series went on, it became more and more, do the bowlers have enough left in the tank?
Oh yeah.
Shannon Gabriel, he was kind of the main character of that particular story. He was kind of the symbol of it all.
Yeah.
He pushed hard and he got through it, and he looked immobile at times, but then he'd come on and bowl 90 miles an hour, and it just wasn't quite there. And I think that was the theme of the series. From an England perspective, the themes were, can we bat well? We knew we had a good bowling attack. We knew that coming in. Can we shore up the batting? Can we not have a collapse? And other than the first day of the first test, the first innings of the first test, we didn't really have a collapse. And it's just it was a case of, could we bat long, bat big, and could the openers make runs, which is something we saw very nicely come together, the opening partnership. Fantastic. And yeah, that was it really for England. It was, could the batting work out? Big moments were probably Dom Sibley's second 100.
Yeah.
That was huge for him. That's given him confidence. Rory Burns getting another almost century, which was basically a century. He would have got it, all things being equal, and if he didn't have to rush it. So that's done well for his confidence. And yeah, just the fact that they both were up there in the top 5 run scorers list. That was a really good thing for England. And once you get both your openers doing that, you've got a good base for Test cricket.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've got the themes from both sides, but also obviously there's one theme that transcended both, which is that how is cricket going to go forward? How is sport as a whole going to go forward? Especially given that this was probably one of the first international sports to go ahead in the UK, but also anywhere in the world. And it was just a question of, are all these different restrictions, all the protocols that have been put in place, are they going to work? Or is they just going to be huge breaches, which mean that things have to be rethought out, and we have to sit back and think again about it, and especially in time of this crisis, it puts that in jeopardy. But I think obviously that theme was answered spectacularly throughout the whole series, in that, well, no, actually things did work out, and things worked very well, and everyone followed the regulations, and there was there's nothing really to worry about, because they stayed safe, and things worked out, and it showed that you can have not just cricket, but you can have cricket that's exciting, but also that actually functions. So you still had all the broadcasting, you had all the commentators there, you had all the photographers and everyone, and it shows all the restrictions that are put into place for everyone worked. So I think that's what this series will be remembered for mostly, is that obviously it was the first series of where in a world that looks very different, and that will be remembered, and that's what this series will be thought about as, the one where cricket got up and going again, and it showed how sport and cricket can go forward and move forward. In terms of, I think, themes from each team, though, I think just there's that theme of renewal for the West Indies, in that this is a team that is back, and they've started to show that they can perform again in a test setting at the highest level, because they won that first test. They were looking very good in the second test as well, and the third test. And obviously, it was just like exhaustion really hit them hard. It was a lack of the strength and depth that they had. And for England, it was that sort of theme of, they just had to progress, and for them, it was a case of planning for Australia, and everything that was spoken about in this series. I think this is going to be a theme of every test series that they take part in until next winter. It's going to be that the answer is going to be, well, what are we going to do for Australia? Because that's where their aim is. That's where they're, and rightly or wrongly, every other team in world cricket for England, every other test nation doesn't have the same status in the minds of English cricket as Australia because of the rivalry that's there. I think everything that goes on, even India, how big and how good a nation India is, even there, the undertone will be, but does this tell us anything more about who we're going to select for Australia? Does this tell us anything more about what we're going to do when the Ashes come along? And so I think that was the theme for England, was this underlying theme of the Ashes, and how we're going to plan for that. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that goes ahead and goes forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I just entirely agree with that, and it's a really interesting theme as well with the Ashes and what's going to happen to that. Yeah. It's compelling stuff, and we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
We will, definitely. I mean, yeah, because there was one last thing on that. There was, obviously the sort of fact to bear in mind is that 18 months before England last won the Ashes in Australia, so 2010, 2011, 18 months before that, England's bowling attack was Freddie Flintoff, Steve Harmison, don't know who can't remember the other two, but England's...
Hogarth and Jones, maybe?
Yes, that was it. And 18 months before, England's bowling attack was comprised, I think, I'm not sure if it's Hogarth and Jones, but it was definitely Flintoff and Harmison. And by the time the Ashes series came along, none of those four were playing in the England team. So that within 18 months, the whole bowling attack had changed. And that was something, was said as a note of caution with all the talk about bowling attack and how there's no push that a lot can happen in 18 months. There's still a lot of cricket to play, and there may well be someone who comes through who we haven't considered yet, or who we don't think of, who will come through and produce a few blistering spells, or a few brilliant spells, and suddenly we all turn around and we're like, well, actually he's worth considering, or he's worth selecting, and so a lot can change in 18 months, but it'd be very interesting to see how this theme develops.
Well, just on that subject, having looked at my calendar, I believe 18 months from the next Ashes series in Australia was 2 months ago. So This is really the first cricket that's been played since then. So the bowling attack at the moment is Broad, Anderson, Jofra, Woakes, Curran, Wood, all those guys around it. Not missing it, Bess and the other spinners. So how much do we think that will change? That's a question, isn't it? I personally say not that much. I think maybe Jimmy might drop off and just into a position where either he or Broad plays. I don't think they'll play together. But the rest of them, because it's different to how it was before that series you were talking about, those were guys who were winding down to the end of their careers. Only Jimmy and Broad are at that point now.
Yeah, no, we've got a much younger team overall than we had then. So I think that probably that's something to consider when thinking about how much things are going to change. But yeah,
as you said, we talk about getting ready for the next Ashes. Yeah. It is a while away.
But yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, at the same time, I do think that by and large, that team will remain the same. But what we will see is, I'm sure there'll be additions, or I'm sure that, one or two players won't make it to Australia. But let's see what happens. 18 months is a long time.
Yeah.
So looking ahead to both the Pakistan series, but also the ODI series versus Ireland, which I think starts today.
It does, 2:00.
So
we should make clear, viewers, we are recording this 2 days after the end of day 5. We're a bit late. Sorry.
Yeah, we're a bit late, but yeah, it's all right. Okay, so looking ahead to Pakistan series, how should England go forward, both in the Test series and in the ODIs? Obviously, the ODIs will be the first time we've seen this ODI team play. I mean, they've had some warm-up games, but this will be the first time competitively we've seen them play, and so that will be interesting. And what will be the key for Pakistan to win, especially in the Test series in England?
Yeah, obviously we're gonna do a bit more in depth on this in a separate episode. I think the basic things for England are just there's not much you're going to be able to change in a week. Just work on getting more secure, getting stronger in the batting lineup, keeping the bowlers fresh, and yeah, that's really all they have to work on. They've had a good series, and they just have to be prepared for the next one and not come in with a horribly slow start.
Oh yeah.
For Pakistan to come and win here, I think the big thing for them, I'm not an expert on the Pakistan team yet. I'm going to be by the time we do the episode on them. But from what I can remember, they have a pretty solid batting lineup. They've got guys like Babar Azam and Azhar Ali in there. Azhar Ali's a batsman, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Got Azhar Ali.
That's going to be the key for their batting lineup.
Yeah. They've got Imam ul Haq.
Yeah.
So they've got some really
selectors in Pakistan. Imam ul Haq, his uncle is the great Inzamam.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
Yeah, and who is also now the chair of selectors. So when you were first selected, there was a lot of talk about what's going on here. But then he did prove
he's a good player. He's a very good player. So I think absolutely. Yeah. The batting's pretty strong. Some of the bowlers we talked about, Naseem and then Shaheen Shah Afridi as well. They're still quite young. They're in kind of a similar position to England. They've got a pretty solid batting lineup, touch wood, with some world-class players kind of scattered throughout it. Then a quite new, fresh bowling attack led by senior guys like, I don't think Mohammed Amir's playing in this one. I think he's just doing the one-day stuff now, isn't he? He retired from Test cricket. But Wahab Riaz, is he in the Test squad?
I'm not sure actually. I don't know.
I think Wahab Riaz is, and so senior guys like him, kind of there's a couple of them in the bowling core leading that. So I think it's an interesting matchup of two pretty similarly balanced teams.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the key for Pakistan to come and win here will be the bowling, control of the ball, and of the conditions of, obviously they can't control the weather, but using the conditions in the way they want to, getting swing and movement on the ball. Yeah. Naseem is a very good bowler, but he's young and he's raw and he's got a lot of pace, and that's good, but he just needs to get that control and the movement of the ball sorted.
Yeah.
Which, he's 17, 18 years old. He's got time.
Oh, yeah,
he's already got a Test fifer, doesn't he? So he's really rocketing to the top.
If he develops at the same pace he is, he's going to be.
He's going to be fantastic.
In 10 years' time, we'll talk about, in 10 years' time, he'll still be in the middle of his career. He'll just be getting into the prime of it.
Yeah, he'll be still almost 10 years behind Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah.
In 10 years. So, unbelievable stuff. And he's a really good bowler. So, yeah, I think that'll be the key for Pakistan to come and win here. ODI series against Ireland. I don't want to be negative and kind of be down on Ireland. But I think even though the squads have been split, there's such good quality in the England ODI squad with
the
both the bowling and the batting.
The bulk of the World Cup winners are still in the ODI squad,
Yeah, so I think Ireland will have to work hard to get a win here.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see from Ireland is I don't think they're going to win. They might win a game. I don't think they're going to win the series. Now that I've said that, they will. But I think what I'd like to see from Ireland is some really stiff competition.
Oh, yeah.
And they are, they're better in the short form than they are in Test matches. But just seeing them put up a big fight, take it down to the last over, the last few runs, that sort of thing, that would be great for Ireland. And obviously, if they could win a game or two, if they could win the series, that would be huge for them. But
yeah,
I think being realistic, England have got enough quality in their team to win that series. I'm excited about it though. I won't be watching the ODIs as much because, well, first of all, my delightful partner is getting very bored of cricket and she's going to kill me if I watch any more. But also, Test is kind of more our thing. But I'm excited about it in seeing the amount of young talent that England have coming through, guys like Saqib Mahmood and Tom Banton, and that interact with veterans like Rashid, Morgan, Moeen, stuff like that, and how they play together. And
what we'll probably really see in this sort of series is a first glimpse of, now that the World Cup has been won, and I mean, like Owen Morgan, is easily looking to find out in the next list. So what we're going to see is the first view of, now that this team is a team that has won the World Cup, what is the future of it going to look like, and what's the future of the England ODI team? Because obviously Stokes is still going to be around, Butler will still be around, Root will still be around. Jofra obviously is coming through. You've got some good players coming through, but the bulk of that team is looking to wind down now. So it's going to be who will take up the mantle in 4 years' time. Who's going to be in India? Yeah, who's going to be in India for the next World Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm going to pick out one particular person who I'm excited to see, I'd like to see Matt Parkinson get a couple of games. Yeah. He's been in and around the Test squad. He hasn't got into a game yet. He hasn't had a Test match yet, has he?
I don't think so. No.
He's done a bit in the ODI squad and T20 squad, but it needs a bit more.
Yeah,
it's so sad, England's record on producing leg spinners. We just don't do it. The conditions don't favour it. The pitches are too wet and soft.
I don't know who. I think it was Mike Atherton who said it. Someone said it a few weeks ago that the reason. Oh, it was Rob Key. It was Rob Key that said it. He said the reason. One of the reasons he thinks that they don't produce. We have to talk about in another episode. Is because in our sort of in club games, but also in sort of age grade cricket, umpires are too strict on wides, and they're too strict on calling players out, which means that obviously when you're a leg spinner, when you start practicing, as anyone knows, you do bowl a lot of wides because of how where you have to pitch the ball. The line is very much, it looks wide at the start, but it's about getting the spin for it to come back in. And obviously, when you start out playing, you will bowl wides because you haven't got the spin, you haven't got the control that you need, but you just have to keep on going. And he says that's why we probably don't produce enough leg spinners as we need, and we don't produce as much as other quality nations do.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just the damp and soft nature of the pitches isn't doesn't help leg spinners. But yeah, that's definitely, the Rob Key thing is definitely a problem, and I really hope that we can encourage children more to be leg spinners. It's a hard thing to do, and if I read a thing about Shane Warne the other day. He played for a club cricket in England as a pro. Yeah. He got signed because they needed a pro, and they just signed the first guy. Yeah. And he didn't take any wickets, and he took him at some horrendous average, something like 30 or 35, and he didn't make many runs. And the man's got 700 and something Test wickets to his name, because it's hard to be a leg spinner in England. At pretty much every level until you get to Test level when you're really, really good at it. So Matt Parkinson's a guy I want to see. I want to see him play Test cricket. I want to see us have a Test leg spinner. We haven't had one since Adil Rashid, and before that it's been a while. Adil Rashid is kind of the exception when it comes to England leg spinners. We haven't had one for hundreds of years before Adil Rashid. But we were talking about this. We said, when was the last time England played two spinners? Oh, it was 2 years ago, Moeen and Adil Rashid. But we haven't seen that before that for ages. So Matt Parkinson's definitely a guy I want to see get game time in all formats of the game. And I'd like to see him, he's predominantly known now as a T20 player. I'd like to see him being drawn away from that and kind of being given the tools necessary to become a top-class Test match playing leg spinner.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's my take on the Ireland ODI series. We'll talk about that as well probably after.
I think what
back on it.
what we'll probably do is, we'll wait till the whole series is done and then have an episode where we just look back at all 3 games. Probably the best way to do it. But yes, there's a lot to look forward to there, and we'll do a separate episode looking ahead to what the Pakistan series, with focus on the Pakistan team as well, and just what we need to look at. Right, so should we finish up with our? There's 3 things to do now. Obviously, star player, moment of the day, word to describe the day. Then we'll do it for the match as well, and then we'll do it for the series as well. So we've got,
got tons to cover. Okay, I'll run through it quickly then. Star players from each team for the day. For the day, I've got to say, obviously, Stuart Broad for England.
Yeah.
Because, Chris Woakes did have better figures, I think, in the end. But Stuart Broad, just fantastic bowling. 500 wickets. Can't take it away from him. West Indian player... let me get the scorecard back up again. It was whoever I said lasted the longest, because that's what they needed to do. Yeah, Jermaine Blackwood. Jermaine Blackwood tried to carry it to the end. Obviously, really, on that last day, really poor batting performance from West Indies. But he was the one who lasted 78 minutes. So, good on him. Moment of the day. It's got to be Stuart Broad's 500th wicket, surely. Can't do anything else but that. It's such a big thing. Word to describe the day, victorious. Yeah. We did well. We won. For the match, star player of the match, I'm going to go again with Stuart Broad, 10 wickets in the match.
Yeah.
Ran through the West Indies batting lineup. West Indies player for the match. Let me look at their first innings. I think overall performance, you've probably got to go Jason Holder. He did an all-round match. He did a bit of everything. He made some runs. He stayed in a bit. He took some wickets, but he wasn't on top form. He was injured. He hurt his thumb. His ankle was troubling him, but I think Jason Holder over the match he led his team valiantly. Moment of the match, Stuart Broad's wicket of Campbell, day 3, beautiful ball. We talked about that. Word to describe the match, England, because we won. And then finally the series. Cool, there's a lot of this.
Yeah.
Star player of the series for the West Indies, I'm going to say Kemar Roach. He senior bowler. He struggled a bit at the beginning, but he kind of got better and better. He was always smiling. He never let his head go down. He was always available to bowl. He was always there, and he always plugged away and had fantastic economy rates, good figures. Outstanding performance from him overall in a losing effort.
First West Indian to take 200 wickets since
Ambrose in '94. So big thing for him. He's only played. Obviously, they play fewer Test matches at the moment, but he's only played 80 Test matches.
Yeah.
So if he can get up, he's 32 or something now. If he can get that up over 100, he could take. He could maybe take 50, 60 more wickets, and that would put him pretty well placed on that list of West Indian bowlers.
Yeah.
Star player of the series for England, Ben Stokes. He was top of the run scoring from either team in that series. He was also 5th on the list of wicket takers. Apart from the occasional dodgy drop catch, he had a pretty much perfect time. Took wickets when it mattered, scored runs when it mattered, played like a world-class player. In the first Test match, he looked like England's best player. In the second Test match, he looked like the world's best player.
Yeah.
In the third Test match, he looked extremely good, even carrying an injury. So, really, he put his body on the line and everything. He did fantastically.
Yeah.
Moment of the series. Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. I'd probably say Ben Stokes, his 100, or Dom Sibley's that partnership between Sibley and Stokes. That was the big turning point for England. That put them in such a controlling position in the second test, and then the third test, kind of the West Indies were on the back foot, and it made it a bit easier for England. So that was big. And word to describe the series: exhilarating. It was a fantastic, fantastic series, competitive pretty much until last day of the last test match, last 2 days. As we said, the trophy was on the line right on the last day. The weather, we didn't know what was going on. That could save the West Indies. There was just so much excitement in that series. Broad taking his 500th wicket, would he, wouldn't he? Yeah, fantastic series, and a great advert for West Indian cricket and why you should get the West Indies to tour your country or to tour to the West Indies, because that will financially benefit them. And, you know, sorry, BCCI, you don't need any more money. Go to the West Indies. Turn up, go play them,
and
make it exciting.
For journalists as well.
Yeah. But go to
every few weeks in the Caribbean.
Not that any of the heads of the major cricketing boards are listening, but tour the West Indies.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. You know, it looks great. The conditions are really nice over there, and they're a good team.
Oh yeah,
and it was an exciting series. That's me done.
Go there just to underline just how much. I mean, cricket is. We say cricket is rooted in the culture of India and the subcontinent, but it's also, to the same extent, is reaching the Caribbean. You know, cricket is the major sport in so many of the nations there, and so, you know, obviously to neglect that, I mean, you puts it at risk and puts that culture and that also the future of cricket at risk there. So just to take that. Yes. Right. So yeah, I agree with everything that you said. Yeah, so what he said basically for the star players and the moment of the day and everything. There are a few things I would differ with you. My moment of the match, I would say, is Chris Woakes' wicket of Jermaine Blackwood in first innings. You know, it was a perfect ball for me. It was amazing. You know, it's straight and it didn't move, and he'd set him up with a few deliveries that moved before, and he played one arrow straight, and then just took his middle stump. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. The line was perfect, the length was perfect, and just straight through middle stump. Yeah, it was brilliant for me. I've got stuff up there many times. So that's my moment of the match. My player of the series, I'm going to differ with you, and I'm going to say yes. Ben Stokes was, you know, obviously, you know, proved why why he should be regarded up as one of the world's greatest players. But I think this was Stuart Broad's series, and I think, you know, obviously we're going to think about it, and I think last year was Ben Stokes' series. You know, that was a difficult Ben Stokes series. This series, I think, is a Stuart Broad series in that he had so much said about him, and he said so much in, you know, in the first, like, why did Stuart Broad? The questions, his future, is this it for him? Is this it for him and Anderson and everything like that? And to come back from that and just the weight of what everyone is saying about you, and give the performances that you do. Obviously, the second test, you know, he gave a very good performance, and he in the second test, not only did he take wickets, he batted a little bit as well, but yeah, fundamentally he took wickets. But this third test, it was just a perfect all-round performance. You know, it was Ben Stokes' level of all-round performance in that he made the runs that he needed to make and the team needed, and then he also took so many wickets. He did 10 wickets over the course of the match. I think it was 10 for 97 or something like that. So yes, I think Stuart Broad is my man of the series. And I think, Stuart Broad is my man of the series. That's what I would say.
Also, he was the leading wicket taker in the series, despite only playing 2 matches.
Yeah, exactly. So it shows just how good he's been in the time that he had. And had he played the first test, who knows what what figures we'd be looking at this point. But yeah, so he's the guy I would choose. The rest I agree with you. The rest I think is pretty much the same. But yes, it's just it's just there that I differ with you.
Fair enough.
Overall exhilarating series, and it really has shown. It has been refreshing in a way that it's everything that Test cricket should be. It's been exciting, and also it's just been refreshing to have sport back. So yeah, that's my yes, I think that is all from us today, and that is all from us for this series. We've finished our coverage of our first ever Test series.
So we will see you in a week for Pakistan.
We might have an episode before that to look forward to the Pakistan series and just discuss that in more detail.
And the Ireland ODI series, look back on that after it's done.
But I think that the next sort of coverage of a Test series we will have is the Pakistan series. So we will see you then. Thank you for listening to us through this series. It's been great to cover that. It's been great to talk about cricket as well. Yeah.
Our first series.
Series. It's done.
And thank you guys for sticking with us. And hopefully there will be more of you next time.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully this is just the start of a very good run. I guess. Thank you very much.